We're up.
This is the Our Town with Troy By, North Alabama's podcast. I tell you what, we'll let the people know. Red is sometimes a difficult color to paint with. Have you ever painted a wall red?
No, I haven't.
You have to pick.
But I can tell you this:
Yeah.
Power Mental Performance Red looks really good on you.
I'll paint it. And you, sir. I guess that's why you chose it. I say that because I painted a wall red, and we had to get a special orange primer.
Oh, really?
And then it took us about 7 coats to get the red looking right.
So I got a mental note: don't paint with red. Unfortunately, my wife doesn't like that as a wall color. Although I say that, and then I'll go home tonight, and she's like, "I really think we should do the dining room in red." So I mean, but mental note taken.
Yeah, that and what you made me at least do something that I should do all shows as a sound check or pre-check and then just check my colors.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we had to adjust 3 cameras.
Man, I'm here. I'm a team player. I'm here to help.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So Roger Kitchen Jr. is here.
I'm here.
You were episode 73 or so?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm. What are we now? What are you up to now?
This will be 117 or 118.
Wow, you're banging them out.
I'm trying, man. Once a week. It is too aggressive for me to try to do more than 1 a week.
Okay.
Could I? Maybe. But realistically,
So it's almost a year because we did it in July last year. So now we're in April. So we're not that far away. So it's
almost 50 episodes or so, right?
Man, congratulations, man.
Oh,
that's
thanks.
Good stuff.
Well,
quality product, good guess. Yeah, I mean, so not surprised.
Well,
hashtag not surprised.
I appreciate it. You know, and what's cool about you, and just about any of my guests, right? I want to support the guest, whatever that is, and it's cool to see your social media posts as you're off working with Hampton Sydney or Bob Jones soccer,
right?
You know, and we just touched on it. I don't think he would mind, but Coach Parker, I'm good friends with him.
Sure.
We go to church together. His mother-in-law passed away.
Yes.
And if you know Coach Parker, he met his wife, and they're like high school sweethearts.
Oh, wow.
He's known Linda Warren, the mother-in-law, forever.
Wow.
And just a great family. So my heart, he texted early this morning. And
he texted me too.
I certainly was aware that she wasn't doing well.
Right. So a quick story.
Yeah.
So I was with the soccer teams a lot this past week, and we went to, I was at the James Clemens game. So it's their arch rival. And before the game, he went around and on the left hand, he put tape on every player, and then he wrote a W. And so he comes over to me and he wraps my wrist and puts a W on it. I'm like, Parker, what's this? I'm like, what's that stand for? Win? What? And he goes, no, I'll explain in a minute. And so after everybody went around, taped their wrist, put the W on it, we all got up against, we were at the stadium locker room, and we got a picture. And he says, guys, I want to let you know what this means. He said, my mother-in-law is in ICU, and she's not doing well. And she loves you guys. She loves this team, and it just breaks her heart she can't be here. So tonight, this game is dedicated to her, and she wants us to come away with the win. So that's what the W meant.
Yeah.
And so we went out, the guys are all fired up, and we go out, and we won the game double overtime on penalty kicks. It was just an amazing game. The guys were gritty, just dug in there. They didn't give up, just played their hearts out. And we got the win. So she was able to see that.
Yeah.
And that solidified, they had to win that game to solidify a playoff spot. So they were able to do that. Now they have to, we have a couple games left in the season. The big game is we have to beat Florence.
Yeah.
They're an area team. So we have to beat them to host first round at home. So that was a nice sentimental win, not knowing, what was going to happen with her, obviously.
Yeah.
But, it was a great win for her and for Parker.
It was 1-0. Was it 1-0?
It was 1-1
for
for 2 overtimes, and then we won 5-3 on penalty kicks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the it's just nothing like sports when you have that game-winning shot, penalty kick, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Last second touchdown, and I saw that on social media, right, with the goal.
Yeah. So as soon as we got the game-winning penalty kick, I videoed it, and you just saw the kids just rushing down towards the goal. It was just a great scene. Great scene.
And you know what's really interesting, and I don't know how many, I've mentioned it over and over and over, which is the concept of Our Town. Coach Parker lives actually in James Clemens district, right? And his kids all went to Bob Jones because Clemens didn't exist at the time.
Yeah.
But you see that like we run the 256, like these banners, right?
Yeah.
And
the boys had one that night.
Well,
I got a great picture of it.
I'm just saying, like,
it's awesome.
Even though I personally don't care, I'm not attached to that rivalry.
Right.
And my kids have nothing to do with that rivalry.
Okay.
But yet, living in the Clemens jurisdiction, you still kind of take a little bit of it's the competitiveness in you, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, they run the 256, huh? And you just get that moment of like,
yeah.
And then it goes away. You're like, okay, that's sport for you. Hey, you win some, you lose some.
And then last night for baseball, Bob Jones and James Clemens played, and I think Bob Jones won. It was a doubleheader, 2-0. Bob Jones baseball is number 1 in the state.
Are they really?
Yeah,
that good.
Yeah, they've put together a really good season this year.
Yeah. So. Well, it's always fun, no matter what. When it's like just citizens, as parents, as townspeople. You walk a little taller. You stick your chest out a little bit when your teams are doing well.
Yeah. So we found that with Hampton-Sydney. So
did you?
Yeah. So we went to the national championship, lost by 7. It was a heartbreaking loss. The team just played so amazing this whole year, and we just came up short. But Hampton-Sydney is a very small rural town in Virginia. Mm-hmm. It's really halfway between Lynchburg and Richmond. But like what it did for the college and what it did for the town to have their college team, men's basketball, go all the way to the national championship for the NCAA D3 national championship, was just amazing. The town just came alive. And even people that are in Richmond, when they would bump into alumni and prominent alumni, they're like, hey, we hear what your men's basketball team's doing. Like, congratulations, keep up the great work. Like, it just revitalizes those towns and those cities and those areas.
So let's do this for anybody who has not seen episode 73 with you.
Okay.
You're a mental performance coach.
Correct.
And you have effectively done very well to kind of spread yourself to have clients like Bob Jones Soccer, mm-hmm. Hampton-Sydney, which is in Virginia. Yep. You are also a powerlifter, and a lot of this came from your own experience.
Right, it did, yeah.
And talking with a colleague at work who helped really drive some of these principles, and you said, you know what, I should, not only take this on for myself,
right.
but I have this interest in teaching others on the controllables and uncontrollables and all the stuff that we went into before.
Yeah.
Without rehashing all of that, though, can you we've mentioned Bob Jones, we've mentioned Hampton-Sydney.
Right.
How are you being used? So is it Coach Kimbrough?
Coach Kimbrough at Hampton-Sydney.
So how does Coach Parker, what does he want from you at Bob Jones? And then talk about what Coach Kimbrough wants from you at Hampton-Sydney.
Oh, okay. So I will say, just as a general statement, every coach wants something a little different.
Okay.
Because each team's unique and each team has different, challenges. Coach Kimbrough, because he's so fantastic at building culture. He's an exceptional coach. He's a great leader. We were introduced from a mutual friend that actually lives in Huntsville here. Coach Kimbrough used to coach at Huntington down in Montgomery.
Okay.
So even though he's from North Carolina, he spent some time here in Alabama. So we got connected through a mutual friend. But they were looking to add another layer and, quote unquote, another tool to help their team win. And so when we got together, and I just explained to him, what I did as a mental performance coach, he just, he's like, man, I'm really interested. It was right around the time they were really solidifying what kind of culture they wanted. And that's kind of my background in business anyway, organization development, working with culture, helping organizations with that. And so we started having a lot of conversations with that. So it all just kind of fell in place. It was kind of the divine appointment. And they said, man, we want this for our program. And that was 3 years ago. So, fast forward 3 years, we're in the national championship. Now, he's a phenomenal recruiter. I mean, they do a lot of things really, really well. And so I just ended up being another piece of that puzzle, for them to help give them a competitive edge against other teams. So the team bought in. they bought in, they were totally sold out. And now really the mental performance aspect is a big part of their culture with the language we use and the words and the terminology. We use it as a recruiting tool. It's not uncommon for me to assess some of their recruits coming in. Even met with one they were really interested in, met with one of their recruits, to really try to win him to the program. So, I mean, everybody's a little different. Parker saw us on this show. And so when he heard about what I was doing in terms of helping kids, become more resilient, bounce back from adversity, perform under pressure, can they adapt in stressful situations to meet the challenge, improving confidence and increasing focus. He's like, man, my soccer team needs that. Again, they're really good. They're top 10 in the state right now. I think they're 7 or 8, have the potential to win area and make a really deep run in the playoffs. So he's like most coaches, they're always looking for something else that's going to give them a competitive edge. And he felt like this was it. And so I've got one more session with them. We've done 5 so far. I'm working with the girls team too, Coach Oakley. And it's really the same thing. When I sat down with Coach Oakley and Coach Parker, it was, they felt like after listening to episode 73 and me having some conversations with them, they're like, man, we want this. We want to build this into our program. So that's really, how what it was like for Coach Parker. But it's an evolution. So they have, I know on the boys' side, I think they've got 8 or 11 seniors graduate. I mean, they're kind of a older team. So those guys are going to rotate out, and it's going to be quite a young team next year, which is even really more important, more crucial to develop the mental skill for a younger team, so that by their junior senior year,
right?
They really mature with the skill development.
I may have missed it. Where did you meet Coach Kimbrough?
We met through a mutual friend.
Okay, that's right. You mentioned that.
Yep. Yeah, it was a high school coach
because
in town.
he had ties to Kimbrough's prior in Huntington.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and that coach was Chris Blanding, who's the head basketball coach at the Alabama School for Cyber Technology and Engineering.
Gotcha.
Previously coached at JP2 in Columbia. We met in 2017, and as soon as we met, we were like brothers from another mother. We just clicked.
Okay.
And he's like, "Man, I need you."
Is he going to have you over the cyber school?
Yeah, I was there last year for their team.
Okay.
And most people don't even know they have a team. I was talking to somebody yesterday. They're like, "I didn't even know they had a basketball team." I'm like, "They got a basketball team." I think they're in year 4. They hadn't won many games. In fact, Coach Blanding won more games last season than they had won the previous 3 years. Mm-hmm. He's a phenomenal coach.
Yeah,
he knows how to coach, and his forte is going to places that traditionally can't win and win.
Right.
So that's kind of his jam.
That's his challenge.
He loves that environment. So like he calls me, I need you. Man, we gotta figure this out. I need you to come in and work with my team. So I plan on working with him next year too.
Yeah. The cyber school, I mean, give them some time, right?
So here's the deal. Cyber school, have you been to the campus?
Yeah, I've been on it.
It's like a college campus.
It is.
It's amazing.
And they're just going to keep adding a new feature facility every year.
So here's the deal. So somebody can fact check me, but I believe they just spent $12 million on a basketball gymnasium and like sports complex type of
multi-purpose type thing.
Multi-purpose building.
Yeah.
And so Coach Blanding had kind of hand in designing that, So yeah, they're in, man. Like they're very blessed to be funded by a lot of corporations.
Yeah.
I don't know how the state funding works, but they're growing the campus and building out their sports program.
Yeah. Yeah, when I had Mayor Battle on, there was the way he phrased it was like it's the only privately funded yet public.
Yeah, it's a interesting dynamic that they have over there.
I should commit that to memory before I try to regurgitate.
Well, look, somebody watching can come in and say, "Hey, Troy, it's this," and you go, "Okay, thanks."
Proud dad moment. So the cyber school also has a really good archery team. Okay,
I'll check that out.
And they got tied into like Buckhorn apparently.
Okay,
like they're usually really good in lots of things. You start asking around like Buckhorn. I think they won state for both boys and girls basketball.
They did. Traditionally, they got a pretty solid cross country team.
Yeah.
So they've got a good running program.
So people will be kind of comment and say, "Oh, I'm not surprised." So I guess they've had some successes, right? Well, and they're really, really good at archery. Now, my son is actually like the number one at Clemens.
Oh, check that out.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool.
Archery's huge. I didn't realize it. We have
huge.
a friend at church, and their son was in archery, and they would talk to me about when they would travel to these tournaments. It's like a music festival. There's thousands of people there.
Yeah, Nationals is coming up in Louisville, and we went last year. And
that is a mentally tough sport.
It's going to be...
The focus and precision and the ability not to think is critical.
It's fun to watch your own kids as they... No matter what the sport, there's a mental aspect, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And at some point, they learn that and they buy into it. So, like wrestling, for example, like my kids would not do much in their... Like when they were freshmen and sophomore, like pre-match, they're kind of standing around.
Yeah.
Once they got more comfortable as a wrestler, you could see their pre-match routine really changed as a junior and a senior.
Absolutely.
And they kind of locked in and weren't embarrassed by whatever warm-up thing they were doing to get ready.
So, you know who highlighted that really well in college football? J.J. McCarthy at Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
With his mindfulness routine under the goalpost.
Yeah.
You know, so he would sit there, he'd cross his legs, take off his slides. Sometimes he'd be bare feet, sometimes he'd be in socks, and he would just sit there and visualize the plays he was going to run. He'd slow his heart rate down, and he'd breathe, and he would just really get still. And I mean, and you think about it, pregame routine on any channel when they're following a star player, I mean, there's cameras all over the place. So, I mean, that's even more impressive to me, where he's blocking out all the media, because he knows as soon as he sits down and does it, like there's going to be cameras all over him. So he's just learned to just kind of block it out and just go through his mindfulness routines. It's pretty cool.
Well, he could do that anywhere.
He could do it anywhere,
but he does it on the field just to kind of channel that energy.
Well, you know,
or he'll have more distraction there.
Well, I think this is me speculating, but he's doing it in the environment he's going to play.
Right.
I mean, you could do it anywhere, but he really wants to sit in his environment and go through his routines.
Right. That makes sense.
In his workplace where he's going to go perform. So yeah, he wants that familiarity.
Now, you had mentioned you're doing a preset number of like sessions, like with Bob Jones.
Right.
Is it the same with Hampton-Sydney, or are you kind of like more on permanent retainer? How does that look as far as them securing your services?
Again, every team's different. They all have different needs. So I've done, I think, when I worked with JP2 girls team like 2 years ago, I think we had as many as like 13. And that's the coach wanted me really involved with the girls team that year, almost like every week. So every team's a little different. So it's anywhere from 4 to 6 sessions usually. With Hampton-Sydney, we do something a little different. In the off season, we'll probably start like July or August. Probably July. No, August. I think August. I'll have Zoom sessions just with the incoming freshmen for that team. And I'll go through about 4 or 5 sessions, and each session's a different mental skill. And so really that's to get the freshmen up to speed for where the rest of the team is. Now, the rest of the team jumps on those calls too if they want to.
Yeah.
The first year we did it, it was primarily freshmen. A few, upperclassmen jumped in. Last year when we did it for the freshmen, almost everybody on the team was there. And so, everybody's getting trained and everybody's kind of getting brushed up on what those mental skills are. And then I'll travel with the team if my schedule allows. Like this past year, I went to their conference championship in Salem, Virginia, and then went to the national championship up in Fort Wayne. 2 years ago, I was traveling with them to Lancaster, PA, and then I went. They actually had a tournament in Nashville, so it was nice to just drive up there and spend time with the team. But every team's a little different, virtual or in person, just depending on the need.
And are they right now? You have the most business, if you will, or more the most time invested through Hampton-Sydney?
I would say, we're on year 3, and I've spent a lot of time with them. Different coaches have moved around and kept me. So like one of my clients is Hoover Volleyball, Amanda Wood, great, awesome coach. 2 years ago they went Elite 8. Last year they went Final 4. Mm-hmm. But she was at James Clemens. I worked with her there, and then when she took the job at Hoover, I said, "Hey, you want to still work together?" She's like, "Absolutely." So I'm actually going to start working with her in July and August again. So I'll go down there and work with her. So, multiple teams have kept me around. I worked with Bob Jones baseball for 2 years. Bob Jones football, I worked with them 2 years. Didn't work with them last year, but Coach White just contacted me the other day and said, hey, I want you to come back. So it really, the repeat business has been good. And as coaches move around, they're like, hey, I want you to come with me. A new client this year was Austin Baseball, but Coach Smothers was at Bob Jones as an assistant. So when he took the Austin job, he said, hey, come with me. And then a new client this year was Huntsville Baseball. And it was really Coach Lamb had seen a lot of his friends who were coaches that were using me and said, hey, I want to add this into my program too. Tonight they got a game against Grissom. They need to win in order to go to the playoffs. So, really it's just kind of been word of mouth, and people have been pretty consistent staying with me. So I've been very blessed and fortunate in that aspect, that people want to bring me back, on a regular basis.
So last night, my son and I were watching Major League.
Okay.
Remember that movie?
Oh, my, yeah. Man, it's been a long time.
Well, it's like, I'm thinking of, this is a question I want to ask you. But
Okay.
Like, I think always, like, in any sports movie, there's that moment, whether it's true or Hollywoodized, right? But there's these moments that they hit their stride as a team, or they have some sort of come to Jesus, if you will.
Right.
And they turn it around. They start winning, whatever.
Yeah.
It's something dramatic.
Okay.
Is there something in either the Bob Jones season this year or the Hampton-Sydney season where you feel like this could be a movie script? The way the season went down, and there was this one defining moment, like high school is high school or college, right? You're always going to be working with a new class. You lost a bunch of seniors. You'd think you're going to be young and not good. And then the coach delivers the speech of all speeches, or there's a players only meeting, or
right. There's something.
Or the coach's mother-in-law passes away,
right?
And they end up on this destiny track.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're in your observance where you could be like, man, this could be a movie?
It's in Hampton-Sydney hired somebody to travel with them this year and be a part of them to do a documentary.
Okay.
And so it was an alumnus of the school that was getting into this kind of business, and he just happened to approach the basketball coaches and said, hey, I'm getting into this. I'd like to do this for you. And that segued into them wanting to do a documentary on this season. And so he traveled with the team and just videoed games. And I mean, he was just in with the team all year long. And so they're in the editing piece right now. So they're putting the documentary together. I think they want to get it ready to be released definitely before the season starts, because they use it for recruiting and things along those lines. But coming back to your question, I haven't seen, to disappoint the audience, I haven't seen with any of my teams where there's just been like a definitive moment that would be Hollywoodized to say, this is an incredible story. Now, I have seen programs mature and do great things. Yeah. Like when you look at Hampton-Sydney, 3 years ago, we were in their conference play-in game. So we were playing in just to get into the conference tournament. Yeah. And we got in, I think we lost in the quarters. And then last year we went to the conference Final Four, and then this year we won the conference championship, and we were number one in our region. And then, we made the run to the national championship. So I've seen that when I work with Coach Blanding over at Columbia in 2017. If anybody knows Columbia High School, it's just a hard place to win.
Yeah.
There's just a ton of different challenges there. And we finished number one in the state that year, and we went to the Sweet 16. We had an upset in the Sweet 16. But that season, we just kind of defied odds all season. Just because of different family dynamics and just the environment that's there. It's just a hard place to win. But he did it. And so that was cool to be along for that ride, to see that happen. I wouldn't say there's been anything dramatic that just turned it around and, man, we're gonna make this into a movie. I've seen things progress over seasons.
Yeah. Well, it could be a movie about 4 seasons of football, right?
Maybe.
It's almost like Rudy. By year 4, you're going to see him get on the field for one play. But one thing I wanted to do that we did last time was hit your website and talk about some testimonials or anything that you want to highlight.
Sure.
I'm sure that we've talked a lot so far about Bob Jones High School and Coach Parker, Coach Kimbrough at Hampton Sydney. And let's pull up your website.
Okay.
And I continue to give you props, man. It's a website that says way more than just kind of a guy trying to make things happen.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
And I may have mentioned something similar to like that before, but let me hit the testimonials section.
Okay, I think you're there.
I mean, is there anyone in particular you wanted me to stop and pause and give attention to?
Yeah, so keep scrolling. So there's, I would say these three right here. So Ruby, Adam, but let's start with Katie. Katie's under Adam.
Katie's right here?
Yeah, Katie McDaniel. Okay. Yeah, so her coach, Travis Mash, he's in the testimonial too. So everybody knows Travis Mash in the powerlifting world. A former world champion, two-time national champion Lenore Ryan with the weightlifting team there. But Katie was just one of those that just had some mental blocks and was struggling mentally, even to the point when I first talked to her, she said she'd just black out on the platform. So you can see the platform there that they compete on. And she's like, I just don't like to, I black out, like my breathing gets all messed up. And she just went through all these, like, whatever she was feeling, like physically. And then she said, like, I don't even like to compete in front of people. And I'm like, man, that's
not good.
Man, that's like what you don't see on the website is you're in front of an audience. Yeah. Like there's fans you're fans in the stand.
The judges in the audience are right in front of you.
Yeah. So the judges are on the different sides of the platform and the audience, like the fans are in front of you. So you're looking at the fans as you compete. So I'm like, man, that's going to be really hard, but we put together a plan and she kind of alludes to it. Like Roger systematically took me through a mental performance plan. We customized it for her. And like she just had a breakthrough, man. It was just dramatic. She said, I actually enjoyed myself for the first time at a meet. I stayed calm, never blacked out, and managed my nerves completely. I'd say that as a breakthrough no matter what I lifted. She's right. I mean, because where we started from to where, and she put in the work too. So it's like one thing for me to coach, but like they gotta take it and put into practice and work with it.
So what were some of those first steps that you took with her, and are they different? Were they different in any way from the other first steps that you take with clients?
With her, I think she was so focused on what she couldn't control. Like that was the big thing. So like athletes that have like high performance anxiety typically have a tendency to be a little perfectionistic. They get so focused on a result. Like if I don't, like golfers, if I'm like 3 shots over par on this hole, or like, whatever their metric or statistic or the result they're going for, like if they don't hit it, like they're a mess. And so it's really teaching them how to work on a process, to get the result they want. Yeah. And that's where you put your attention. And then there's things we can do physiologically, like helping them with their mental rehearsal and visualizing and helping them learn how to just breathe properly. I think breathing's still the number one underrated skill for any athlete.
Do you remember what that first uncontrollable you worked on with her?
It just, off the top of my head, no. I think what I was really trying to get her to, she was so fixated on making a mistake or not hitting a lift that we really had to break down, what her process was going to be and focusing on what the process was to make the lift.
Okay.
And really not, once you understand that results and mistakes are uncontrollable, like it's not a matter of if it's going to be when.
Right.
And the great athletes know how to respond to that when. So if something doesn't go my way, it doesn't really bother them.
Yeah.
They just learn to go on to the next play really, really quick. So with Katie, it was getting back more process oriented, learning to control what we can control, breathing in, bringing in a lot of the breathing techniques, and then staying in contact with her weekly to understand, like do it in practice. So like when you're training these pre-lift routines, these process routines, these breathing routines while they're training, so that when they get to a competition, they're still going to feel the pressure. If any athlete gets into there like, oh, I don't feel anything and I'm not nervous, like they're lying.
Yeah.
The really elite ones just learn how to manage that better to a point where they can get into that flow state and they can get into that zone just a little bit easier, and it feels more natural.
Yeah.
But pull the testimonial up because there's 2 more on there.
Yeah.
Go up above Katie.
Up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like Ruby was Ruby's on the same team, and we've been working together 3 times. She's like this close to qualifying for the Olympics. And so she's got some competitions coming up, and she's just an animal, and she loves the mental skill stuff. Like she embraces it. She loves it. Has an open mind, and she's willing to put in the work mentally. In addition, she's really competitive, and she has a strong work ethic. So like she has all the tools that are there for her, and we're on year 3, and typically we get together about 4 to 5 weeks out from a competition. Like we have a really good relationship now, so it just kind of ebbs and flows.
She kind of contacts you when she needs you.
Yeah, so she did one. She did University Nationals a couple months ago, and she got the bronze. So she's back-to-back bronze medalist for University Nationals. And I'm like, so when's your next competition? She's like, June. So we start working together in May. And then, we figure out, I'm like, tell me what you're doing well. She just lays out, man, I'm doing well. I'm like, where do you want to grow? Where do you want to put your attention to? And she's like, I'm still struggling with this. I want to do that. And we just customize a plan for her, and we meet usually once a week, leading into those competitions.
On Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom or FaceTime, whatever works for them. But yeah, she's special. And then Adam, I love this guy. He's All-American this year, 3-time conference selection, and just loves the mindfulness. Just loves it. One of the things you asked me in a previous in episode 73 is like, what makes some of these athletes different when you get involved with them on the mental skills coaching? And the number one thing is always an open mind and a willingness to do something different. And for it to maybe feel a little disingenuous or maybe a little awkward or just kind of different, but just kind of trust me in the process and just kind of go with me. And so Adam embraced it right away. He loves mindfulness. He and I will do mindfulness before games, or we'll just go off somewhere either in the Coliseum or arena or like at a hotel. And I've got this routine. It's called MVP. It stands for Mindfulness, Visualization, Powerful Self-Talk. And so it takes 5, no more than 10 minutes to just practice our breathing and really just be mindful of how our body feels, and just Adam will get centered. And then he's really mature with his visualization, so he'll mentally rehearse free throws, and he'll mentally rehearse a 3-point shot, and he'll mentally rehearse just playing and like dishing the ball and dropping assists. And even like, when we were in Fort Wayne and we had a session before the Final Four game, he's like, yeah, I just kind of mentally rehearsed high-fiving my guys on the team and the guys on the bench, and just, just being a part of the team, and like just whatever gives that athlete energy. So we'll do that MVP process. And it just shows not only is he just really talented, but he works. Like you can't do this and not put in the work. Like that's the thing. There are athletes that just have natural talent. They're in the single digits.
Yeah.
But at some point, when talent's equal, like your mindset and your mental skill is going to be the differentiator. And so like Adam, on top of embracing all this and doing just a phenomenal job with it, like he works. Like he's gritty. He has a really high, so grit is that passion to accomplish a goal, and then the ability to stay the course to get there. So he has like this really persevering spirit about him. So like, man, when you got a guy that's like gritty, and you got a guy that's like competitive, and then you got a guy that's not willing to, doesn't shy away from the work.
Yeah,
man, they're dangerous. Like he easily could play just almost within reason with just about any college and in the NCAA. But like Hampton-Sydney's where he's at, and he's just been a phenomenal part of the program. Team captain just a great leader for the team. So like those three, like in different ways, are like your prototype athletes. All of them are. Like, we talked about Peyton before.
Yeah.
She goes to Athens, plays softball, and she's a great client too. When I worked with her. So like everybody's a little bit different.
My mind was going there as you were talking about how Adam was visualizing just the most minute details.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where I was kind of thinking of, and I'm probably not different than most that played sports, where you might have just visualized the big moment, or not striking out when it's like either the most embarrassing, worst thing you fixated on,
right,
and or fixating on the event that most just the glory moment, right, the heroic moment, versus really kind of what you're getting at here is someone really blocking, like not going there and just focusing on what you can control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and or just go through the fundamentals and just fixate on that, right? Because it's the culmination of all those things.
You think about like mentally rehearsing a free throw.
Yeah.
And being able to do that over and over and over and over and over again, it has an impact, so it's something that could be crucial in a game, right? Games can be decided by free throws. And so,
which is different than saying, "Oh, I want to score 30 tonight, and I want to be 10 for 10 from the line." Yeah. And you're just kind of thinking of the result, right?
Yeah, it's very process driven. Go to the homepage, because I want to show you another athlete. He's a good friend of mine. He loves visualization too. Let's see. Yeah, this guy right here. Go back down. Right there. Yeah, Jesse Lindsay. He's a great power lifter here in the state of Alabama. Good friend of mine.
Oh, hold on. What happened?
I don't know.
I went too far. Go to homepage.
Yeah.
All right, I can edit all this together.
Yeah, right, so right there. Yeah, Jesse. He got in the mental rehearsal big time. Even down to the point, like when you go to deadlift and you're setting up on the bar and you're getting your hips and your legs in the right position and your hands in the right position, like he would visualize between lift attempts. And so in a powerlifting meet, depending on how many lifters are there, if it's a big meet, you probably got 20 minutes, give or take, before you do your attempts. And he would I actually have a picture somewhere. I don't think it's on my site. It actually may be on my site somewhere, where he's just sitting in a chair visualizing. And he was even like down to like, he's like, I could see the chalk floating in the air off of my hands when I was setting up on a bar. Like he got that granular. Like there's a couple meets where I'll go and help him. I'm his handler. So like I'm helping him get warmed up, and I'm letting him know when he's going to lift. And there's times where like he would be so deep into visualization. I'm like, Jesse, you're like 3 people out. Like we need to get ready. And so like then he would kind of come out of that visualization, get ready to go compete on the platform. So that's cool. Again, like every athlete is different. Every athlete gets drawn towards certain things within the mental skill arena. And, I'm just a big fan of the breathing. That's always been my thing, and the self-talk. Like those are the 2 things that really I think have helped me the most just as an athlete.
Yeah, we talked last time about the 20-20-20 rule.
Oh, yeah,
right, and the breathing, and LeBron does a lot of that.
Yeah, there's videos that are viral of LeBron, like in key moments of a game, or at the scores table getting ready to come in, where he'll just take 5, 10, 15 seconds, and you'll see him just close his eyes and breathe. And the idea, physiologically, this is the piece that I really try to emphasize to athletes, because a lot of times, breathing, Roger, really, that's not going to work. I'm not a monk. They kind of have a weird association with breathing. I'm like, man, you don't know what you're doing to your body. Like you're just putting your body in a position to perform, slowing your heart rate down and just getting, your nervous system ready to perform, and getting out of your head and just getting your body ready to, the idea is you're getting your mind out of the way, so all that muscle memory and practice comes through.
Yeah.
So that when you get out there to perform, like everything that you've practiced in practice, it just shows up.
Yeah.
And breathing is just one of those ways that resets you, and it just gets your heart rate down and just allows your body to do all that, what you've trained it to do. So, you're slowing your mind down so that your body can speed up and perform.
let's take a little bit of a segue.
Yeah.
And talk about professionally what you're doing at work.
Oh,
your other job. Sorry, I'm not saying you're not a professional.
No, I got it.
I
didn't
say
take it that way.
your normal bread and butter.
Yeah,
right?
the day-to-day, right?
The day-to-day.
Yeah.
But how much what you're learning, practicing, teaching others on the power mental performance side is helping you in your work. And then also just kind of remind people what it is you do in your day job.
Yeah, so I work for a consulting company. So I manage our leader development programs. I manage a resilience program that I created. So my job is to make sure our employees from intern to CEO have the knowledge, skills, abilities to perform at a high level.
Okay.
So that's like the elevator pitch. So the interesting thing is my company is really, I got great leaders, great supervisor, great team. I was able to bring like what I was doing on the mental performance side into the company. And so last year, I pitched this idea to create a resilience program to help people perform under pressure at work. Consulting industry is really hard. You know, it takes a unique person to work in the consulting industry because you have usually high workload. It's fast. There's a lot of pressure. Not every client is awesome. You know, you have some challenging clients. And so it's a unique environment. It's different than just showing up to work, doing your job, going home. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot we expect of our consultants. So knowing that, and I've worked in that environment too, so I know it really well. But knowing what the pressures are that they face, I'm like, man, we got to figure out a way. As I lose my voice, we got to figure out a way. To bring these resiliency skills and this mental performance skills into the workplace. So I pitched this idea. My boss liked it. So I went to her boss, which is the chief human resource officer, pitched it to her, and she said, I think it's great. And then I, went out across the company and met with different stakeholders, and everybody's like, do it, do it, do it. One of our C-suite leaders was like, absolutely, Roger, go do it. And then I found a partner in our company that championed this program, and he actually attended like 5 out of 9 sessions to show his support. At the partner level, they're just crazy busy. The fact that he made 5 is amazing. But, we ran a pilot last year, and we graduated 27 people out of the pilot, so we got our proof of concept now, right? We know it works. The feedback's been good. We evaluated it to death, and then we launched it to the entire company in 2024. We doubled the amount of classes that we offered. And like as soon as we pushed it out to the company, they filled up. Like the classes, like even the wait lists were full. And so, it's just been one of those things where the company has embraced the mental performance.
What's the total number of employees at the company?
Oh, wow.
Thousands?
Yeah, we're almost 17,000 globally.
Okay.
Biggest contingency is U.S. Second largest group is over in India. And then we've got probably third biggest is over in Europe, across all of Europe.
And how many different classes are there? Is it just one right now? One
course?
No,
actually it's 10 classes.
Wow.
It's a resiliency skill or a mental performance skill with each particular class. And we have people within the company that are actually trained in this, which is really nice. So we've got people with backgrounds in psychology and performance psychology by degree, and even by work experience. Have a background in performance psychology. All of them worked for the Army as master resiliency trainers. So they had all of that background to bring to. I believe it's 4 facilitators. All of them have a sports background too. So they played sports in college. So they're like unicorns, right? I mean, most people, there's just not a lot of people like that exist. And so they teach the sessions. I program manage it. I always joke with them. I'm like, if you can't facilitate a session, I'll teach it, right? I'm the JV team. But I come in and, I facilitate some sessions too, but they're the primary facilitators.
Did you then come up with the course curriculum or the design of the course with them?
Yeah, so I designed the program, and then what was funny, I was creating it from scratch.
Yeah. And
just so I was building out my own program, and then I connected with one of the facilitators through just an email string, and she said, I had made a comment, and she's like, do you do mental performance? Because the comment on the email string made me think you do some type of mental coaching. I'm like, yeah, and this is what I do. And then she's like, well, this is what we do in the company, and here's our client, and this is,
Okay.
you know, there's 4 of us that do this, and, you know, this is our client, what we're doing. I'm like, I said, I'm building a resilience program. And I said, would you guys be willing to teach, you know, this program based on the content that you've already created, so we don't have to create anything from scratch? Yeah. And she's like, man, we're in.
Done.
So it was like, let's go. And then we ran the pilot, graduated 27 people. We've been in fact, I just finished up a return on investment study on it. And so we had like 107% return on investment for the program. So we were looking at things like slowing down attrition and improving people's productivity. And one of the unique things we looked at was, you know, would people be avoiding work absences? So would people be more prone to be at work, you know, if they were scheduled to be at work but then didn't come in for whatever reason, you know, do they feel like they would be more present at work? And people in the program were like, yeah, absolutely. If I build my resiliency skills, if I build my mental skill, yeah, I'm going to be more productive, and yeah, I'm going to be able to handle the stress and manage that well. And yeah, I'll be at work more because I probably won't need to take as many days off, you know, quote unquote, to recharge or to, you know, kind of get my juice back. And so, yeah. And so that's been, and we're just getting started. In fact, today I had to open up more seats per class because the demand's been so high.
Is it virtual training?
It is virtual.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've COVID, you know, kind of squashed that, and there's going to be a point in time where I think we'll do some more in person. But right now, we're just kind of resourced to do it virtually.
Is there an aspect of this that has really surprised you? I would imagine in your mind, you know, with the power mental side, the clients, you know, okay, this is gonna be very similar when I go meet with the corporate side.
Yeah.
Is there an aspect though that was like, whoa, totally underestimated?
I tell you what, the hunger and thirst for it. Like when I saw the classes fill up like in almost overnight, I was like, wow. I think that was the one thing that caught me off guard, because I was like, I mean, I know the environment in which we work, and there's a lot of still post-pandemic. You know, a year ago, there were still some post-pandemic things hanging around within our workforce, different challenges that people were going through, and I you know, we're probably still feeling those today. But yeah, when the hunger was there for people, like, yeah, like when we marketed, quote unquote, this program within the company, and people were like, I need it. Mm-hmm. That you know. Typically, classes may take a week or two to fill up, but like they filled up almost overnight. So that was the one thing that really. So I'm like, wow, we're on to something now. Like we're solving a true problem versus this just being a good idea and then trying to convince leadership it's a good idea. Like we're really solving a problem.
What does it look like? I think a lot of classes will start with. How many are in each class that sign up?
So
20, 30?
We started honestly with 50.
Okay. So 50 people.
And now we bumped it to 75.
You may or may not have time to go around and do introductions.
Sure.
Typically, there's this maybe an opportunity to say, hey, Roger, what are you looking to get out of this class? Paula, Tom, Billy, what is the prevailing idea or, you know, things that people are putting forward on, hey, I'm expecting to get this out of this class?
Yeah, so virtually, you know, in person, we would have more time to do something like that.
Okay.
So you got in a consulting company, they have this thing called utilization.
Sure.
They've got targets, and our utilization's high. So we've got to be really strategic in terms of, you know, the pilot program was 45 minutes per class, and that was intentional because their workload's big.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be mindful of their time. We pushed it out to 90 minutes because the feedback we got was they weren't long enough.
Right.
But like I can't keep consultants in training, you know, for long periods of time. So we've got to be utilization mindful for that. And so,
for those who don't know what that means, utilization is the amount of basically percentage of time you're billing a customer.
Right.
Just like if you're an attorney, right?
Right.
You have to constantly be charging someone.
Yeah.
So then
you have a utilization, like a percentage of your time.
95%
has to be client facing, working with the client.
Right.
And so that's, I mean, any company, that's how they make money. So, we have to be very sensitive to that. And so what I will say is, so we evaluate all the classes and we get the feedback, and people are like, I'm learning how to control my controllables. I'm learning that not all stress is bad for me. I'm learning how to manage my emotions in the moment. I'm learning how to use the stress for, for my benefit, and learning how to, use my emotions for, not react.
Yeah.
There's a difference between reacting and responding. So they're learning to slow down kind of their mental emotional state so that they can respond appropriately to a challenge, within their environment. So like they're learning all these different mental skills, so that as a consultant they can just perform at a higher level. And quite frankly, at the executive level, it's just as important too. Executives are under great pressure. You think of any business, executives are held to coaches. It's wins. Are you winning?
Yeah.
If you're not winning, you're gone. With executives, it's like, are you making money? Is the company profitable? And like, if you're not going to be around long. So they're tied to results too, whatever that metric is. So the pressure for executives to perform is huge. And quite frankly, every executive needs a mental skills coach to learn how to handle that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I know we've chatted about it just as far as working in kind of business development. And things
that's a big pressure area too.
And learning how to, what are those things that are in my control?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to realize that most things are outside of my control. So I can't fixate on results when ultimately I'm going to do the best I can, and I can control that.
Right.
I can control the quality of the work I do, how proactive I am on things that I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
Right. So that I can ultimately, then everything else is somewhat out of my hands, because other people are part of the team, and or ultimately a customer may or may not decide to go with our proposal, even as compelling and as good as it may be. There may be some factors that you just can't foresee.
Right. And there was a great soundbite. So for the golfers out there, if they watched the Masters last weekend, Scotty Scheffler just won it again.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, listening to the announcers, they routinely said, man, I'm just impressed with his composure. Man, I'm just impressed with his demeanor. He's just the same every hole. And like it was that, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's really what they were saying.
Yeah.
And the soundbite that I heard from Scotty Scheffler was, because somebody asked him something along the lines of, what are you thinking about when you're out on the course and you're in this big major and you have potential to win it? What's going through your mind? And he says, really not a lot.
Huh.
He said, the way I handle it is, he's like, if I have prepared and I've put in the work and I've trained and I've practiced, and I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, but he's like, if I've done everything I've needed to do in order to win, he's like, when I get on the course, he's like, then I just trust that. He's like, then I just go play. And he's like, then I just, I let go of everything else and I just go play golf. He's like, the preparation is what gives me confidence.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing for like you or me, when we've done what we can do, and then you focus on what you can control, then, you learn to let go of those uncontrollables. And you just do what you need to do and focus on what you can control, and trust the train. Like in powerlifting, that's big. It's just, if you've put in the training, you just trust the training, trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust that it's going to show up there on the competition day.
I've always found it, if it's true that a golfer can truly not like look at the leaderboard or not know what's going on and they just play their game. On TV, you're watching. Let's say it's Scotty Scheffler, right? And he's got a one-shot lead. Like, sometimes, I'm not saying it's him, but there might be a golfer like, well, I didn't really know until I came up to 18. Like, really? Where it's one of those sports where how do you not want to know in a way, and or react to that information? What do you need to do? Now, I know every golfer is going to want to birdie a hole or stick to their game plan, but sometimes you might need to revise your game plan if you need to make 3 or 4 birdies, if you have any shot at winning, right? Or try to make an eagle. But I just find that knowing that how difficult that would be for me, and then knowing how strong someone else's mind is, to be able to, if in effect you have that golfer's like, yeah, I don't pay attention to any of that till we're done. Like, okay, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I think the great golfers over time probably do that consistently.
Yeah. You wanted to talk about NIL, and I would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna segue this a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take the conversation a different direction, but it comes back to the transfer portal and NIL. So one of the things I helped Hampton-Sydney with was, assessing their recruits to make sure they were a right fit player. So we've got this assessment that a recruit can take, and it breaks it down in terms of, like, we get to see their competitiveness score, their persistence or grit score. Persistence, that's what we call grit. Their work ethic, also their team orientation. Are they a me over we player? And then there's this other interesting dynamic called mastery, and it's really an athlete's love for learning and their preparation for an opponent. So, like, typically somebody that scores really high mastery has a high IQ for their sport. They're like watching film, studying the playbook, going outside of that to like watch podcasts, like reading, like really studying.
Student of the game.
Yeah, student of the game. And then they're really good at preparing for an opponent. Like, they know their opponent's weaknesses. They know who they're going to play. Like, if it's basketball, they know probably who they're going to guard in that game, so they're studying their opponent.
Now, who's collecting this data?
It's a company that we use, and then they provide the data to me.
To you. Okay.
And then I brief like the coaches on different recruits. So we've done it for all Hampton-Sydney's recruits this year coming in, and so we get a really good snapshot of if that person's going to be kind of a right fit person for them. So the idea is, the higher the score, the better. So if they score well in all those dimensions, but the thing is, for a coach, we're taking the ambiguity out of recruiting. So it's like, if recruiting and, trying to get that athlete, you watch them on film, you see them in practice, we're just taking that ambiguity kind of from here, looking at the camera, the monitor, and just kind of coming down to here. That way they know what they're getting. And so it doesn't necessarily eliminate a person, regardless of the sport. It doesn't necessarily eliminate them, but it helps the coaches understand what they're getting and how to coach that kid differently. It also could mean they may not be a good fit for our culture.
Right.
And so you don't want to put a kid, and I use the word kid, it's probably not the right, young adult. You don't want to put that athlete in the wrong environment. That's just not going to set them up for success. Nor do you want to put extra time on the coach's schedule and calendar to always have to be coaching that athlete, and following them and making sure they're doing everything. Because, like, if you can take a day away of, like, travel from having to go watch a recruit, man, that's like gold for a coach. So it's interesting. That assessment is rooted in Division I Power 5 football. So that's where the assessment comes from. When I met with the founder of the company, I said, I think this will work for basketball. So we ran a pilot program, and Hampton-Sydney was one of the teams in the pilot. And we're starting to find, man, it's crazy accurate. So we're really getting a good profile. So so now back to NIL and transfer portal. So since this assessment is primarily used in Division I football, you think about how the transfer portal has changed the scope of college football. And then you look at the NIL impacts of that. And like as I talk to coaches, I haven't heard anybody go, "It's awesome, man. I love it. Let's keep. We need more of it." Like, colleges are hiring NIL employees and, like, standing up offices and divisions within the athletic department to manage all this. It's just really crazy. So where this particular assessment can help, you think of like a Deion Sanders at Colorado, or even the new coach down at Alabama that came over from Washington.
Yeah.
If you're assessing players in the portal, then you know what you're getting quicker than just watching film or what you see in the portal. So Yeah, so NIL is just it. So I look at it from a different lens. I look at NIL and the transfer portal from who am I getting and what am I getting? Because inherently every team, if they're doing it really well, they have their established culture. It'll be interesting to see what the culture is like now at Alabama, as Nick Saban steps out. But I want to know as a coach, who am I getting?
Yeah.
And taking that kind of guesswork out of it to know if they're going to be a right fit for what I'm doing.
Right.
If they have a low team orientation score, then they may be kind of a me over we player, and they may just be there for the NIL dollars and like what they can get, through that kind of avenue. And might not be a good fit for that team. Could actually be a big like toxic person in the locker room. So I look at it from like a recruiting perspective.
Sure. Here's a question. I'm not sure if you can answer it, but it's just interesting to ponder if the correlation is now strong where you have these scores that come in.
Yeah.
If assuming it was widespread and everybody had a similar thing, and then then predicting and or now realizing, because of these scores, they entered the transfer portal. Ultimately, they because I hate it. I hate the fact now that, and this goes back to the our town concept. I like the way you grew up where it was just your town for someone else, and you had what you had. You may have had a new kid move in. This kid named Roger Kitchen Jr. moves in over the summer, and all of a sudden your little baseball team or football team is a little bit better. Yeah. Now it's just you transfer to win championships, I guess, or you want to start, or you want to do this, you want to do that, and it's just me, I want this, I want that, so therefore I'm gonna be in 4 or 5 different schools in my collegiate career. Like that's mind blowing to me.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. So UConn men's basketball back-to-back champions, right? First time since 2007 when Billy Donovan did it at Florida. There was a really great article. Coach Hurley was interviewed. I can't remember. It was like Good Morning America. It was one of the morning shows, and he basically said the culture that they have within the program. He's like, we look at parents. Mm-hmm. He's like, so we really assess the parents, and he's like, we actually recruit parents too. He's like, so did a parent hold their kid accountable? And I'm getting back to your comment on playing for a bunch of different teams and transferring around like crazy. And he said a kid that really wasn't held accountable by the parent kind of was able to do what they wanted to. They may have been freakishly talented, and that allowed them to do what they wanted to do. But he's like, if they were on like 4 or 5 different AAU teams and like transferred to a couple schools, he's like, they're probably not going to fit at UConn.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm kind of old school. I'm gritty. He comes from coaching royalty. His dad's a high school Hall of Fame basketball coach. His brother played on Duke 2-time national champion, I believe.
Yeah.
I think he was a first-round draft pick for the NBA, then got in that really bad car accident, and that really kind of sidelined his career. And then Coach Hurley at UConn, he played at Massachusetts, UMass. So he played college basketball in the D1 program. But he's like, and they're from Jersey City, which typically kind of has this blue-collar feel anyway.
Sure.
So he's like, that's just kind of, that's our culture. He's like, I'm tough on my guys. He's like, I'm hard on my guys in practice. He's like, that's just kind of how we roll. He's like, so not everybody's going to be a fit.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you've played like multiple AAU teams and like transferred around a lot, probably not going to work here. That's even more reason to assess players coming in, to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So that you know if they're going to be a good fit. But it was interesting. He really tied the parents into that whole story. And so that was really interesting. So I posted on my Facebook page, like, parents, you're being recruited too.
Yeah. Just
understand that.
The positive side to, I guess, NIL is it's keeping kids in college. So like during this national championship game, there's more and more seniors and or graduate students, 5th year. Some of that may have something to do with COVID.
Yeah,
than ever before. It used to always just be a 1 and done or 2 and done off to the NBA.
Yeah,
and now I think Caitlin Clark made $3 million in college. She's kind of an exception.
Yeah.
But there's guys that are making money, so there's not as much need to like try to bounce to the to the professional ranks right away.
Yeah.
Because that's somewhat being satisfied with the NIL deals.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I think if I had a comment on that, I'd probably be spitballing too much. What I saw, like with Hampton-Sydney, another Division III. This is probably more prevalent Division II. So they got the extra COVID year. So there was a lot of fifth-year seniors at Hampton-Sydney.
Yeah,
a lot of guys that are going to get their master's degree. So I think at those lower levels, it may. And again, this is just off the top of my head. Probably staying around longer and getting a good college education. So whether it's slowing it down at the Division I level, I don't know. I'd have to look into it a little bit more.
I think it's keeping them in.
Okay.
But I think 4 or 5 years from now we'll be able to go back and look at the data.
Yeah.
And I remember what I was going to say earlier.
Okay, let's do it.
I thought it was cool that it seems like anytime you do a documentary, like Colorado did, they had that like great success at the beginning of last season.
Yeah.
And it kind of died off. But Dion's obviously got it working in Colorado with his son who follows around all the social media. But it seems like whether it's just luck or it just seems to inject another level of excitement in the team when you commit to, okay, we're going to do a year-long thing. We're going to let this group of people come in and follow us.
I love those documentaries.
I do too.
I'm not a heavy reader. Kind of, you would think kind of what I do, even just with employee learning and development, like Roger would be this. I'm not a voracious reader. I've got a friend that just consumes books. My dad, and so I'm jealous of that. My dad was a guy that could read it, like when he worked for the government, and he'd go TDY, and he'd read a book in like one trip. He'd read it on the plane going to and back and be done. I'm like, gosh, Dad, I wish I had that. But I realized I watch a lot of documentaries. I love watching documentaries. So I watched
You're filling your mind.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing about Coach Sanders out in Colorado. There's Apple just released one called The Dynasty about the New England Patriots. I would say if you saw Man in the Arena by Tom Brady, there was a lot of overlap there. So
The Last Dance.
Last Dance was a great one. The Captain with Derek Jeter was really, really good.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested in documentaries. I can't remember if it's Netflix. Has done a bunch on some historically black colleges that are really interesting, like Howard Golf.
Right.
Was a really good one. Steph Curry's really tied in with Howard because Steph Curry's a really good golfer.
Yeah.
There was a good one. I think I might butcher the team, North Carolina A&T, historically black basketball team. That was really good. The black college there over in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So that was a really good one. So I found myself, watching a lot of those documentaries. There was one on the PGA called Swing.
Full swing.
Full Swing. That was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to comment on that because what they have to do is they're not sure who's going to win.
Yeah.
But they'll pick like 10 guys to follow.
Yeah.
And then, one might hit. He actually may have won that week, but then the other might be someone like a Ricky Fowler that they kind of expected. Well, we're not really sure. He'll either miss the cut or barely make it, but it's worth following him just for the the story.
I think NFL Films, or I can't remember the other channel, but they'll do one on like rookies.
Yeah.
Just to kind of track rookies and see how they do. Not knowing what the outcome's going to be, will they make the team or not make the team, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I watch a lot of that.
It's a lot of editing, isn't it?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how many hours of film was shot for the Hampton-Sydney documentary, and then see how long it really is.
Yeah.
So
when I was interviewing Joel Lamp, I've mentioned this, I don't know, it just keeps coming back to me, but it fascinates me where they can now cover fishing live. Like they do these fishing events, right? And it's becoming so popular, and I guess people tune in, just kind of like Red Zone, where if you've got 60 boats out there, I shouldn't say 6, let's just say 20. There's 20 boats. But they all have a camera crew on them.
You can see what each boat is doing.
And as soon as someone has someone on the line, they're cutting to that.
Yeah.
So you, as a viewer, you should always be watching someone bringing in a fish, right? Well,
it just blows my mind how much professional fishing is blown up.
Yeah. Well, he was saying that before it's like 680 hours of film to edit down into like one hour or 2 hour special, right? Because you're trying to go out to all the boats, and then I'm like, I wouldn't want that job.
No.
Trying to edit all that together.
No, couldn't do it.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you, Roger Kitchen Jr.
Okay.
So in 2023, powerlifting rankings were as such, age and weight class.
Age and weight class.
30th out of 125 in the world.
Yeah.
And 17th out of 73 in the U.S.
That is correct.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it was it was a good year for powerlifting, in spite of just, as you know, like, my parents' health wasn't really good. Yeah. Just a lot going on, being a husband and father and working full time in the mental skills coaching and trying to take care of my parents, and then powerlifting all through that. So
that was like your escape, but also had tangible goals tied to it.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I know my limitations. It's like, it wasn't like I'm going to be number one in the U.S. and the world, but my mindset was like, well, let me just see what I can do. Let's just see what happens. Like, let's try to. And the training was really, really tough. There were some dark days where it was like, man, I do not want to train. I got to a point where I was hating it, and that's when I knew it was like too much. Where I was like, and I like every athlete hits that. Like, there's just days you hate it. There's days you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
it sucks. It's terrible. But like, you still got the goal on the wall, and it's like, you got to have a strong why. Like, why am I doing this to my body? And like, you got to have that why and know why you're doing it. And that's kind of what pulls you through. But yeah, it just ended up being a pretty good year. So yeah.
So, did you think at all, like, I want to be top 25, or was it more of just?
So when I looked at the rankings, like, I remember when I started early last year, but like, the meets really hadn't swung in. I was like top 10, I think, U.S. and world. I'm like, oh, okay, but that was like April. I'm like, I know there's a lot of powerlifting left in the year. There's a lot of meets worldwide, so it was like, I know that's going to change, but to kind of finish top 20 in the U.S. and the world is really tough. So I was like, God, I just don't know where I'm going to fall there. I was really more worried about the U.S. ranking. Worried isn't the right. I was paying attention to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like, let me just see what I can do.
Okay.
Let me just grind it out. Let me just put in the work and the effort, and let's just see where the chips fall. It was really that mindset.
So, kind of similar to what I mentioned earlier about Bob Jones and Hampton Sydney with like movie. I mean, you described some dark days, which is probably true of any training regimen in the past.
Yeah.
But was there something different this time that really gave you that extra fuel, or you found something?
I would say every training cycle for a competition always seemed to have like a little bit of a different why. For a while there, the particular federation I was lifting in, it was like chasing records. Like, I would go look at the records. I'm like, I can beat that if I work at it. And I'd start picking up these records here within the state. Had a few nationally, had one world record. They've since been broken, but I still got a bunch in the state. But it was like every training cycle kind of had a different why. And I think this time, the training was just harder mentally and emotionally. I think it was just a culmination of a lot of stuff. Just, the feeling the pressure and the stress of, my parents and their health, and work schedule was busy, and mental skills was busy, and just a lot of other things that had happened. It was really, could I live with myself if I quit?
Yeah.
And like, I just couldn't live with myself. And it was just, so like, when it was really, like, I'll just be candid, it was really bad. Like, mentally, emotionally, it was just really dark at different times. And to just sit there and go, like, nobody in the planet would have cared. It was just like, if I said, yeah, I'm not going to compete, and that, I've got a support group around me that's like, yeah, Roger, we get it,
Yeah.
And nobody would have faulted me for it. But it was like, if I did it, I just couldn't live with myself. So it was like that. It was that.
Because, is that also because you are training athletes to not quit, not give up.
So I think that's part of it. Like the mental skills coach can't quit kind of thing. But there's just a part of me that, in episode 73, we talked about like why I do what I do. So like I mentioned back then, like I just squandered a lot of academic and athletic opportunity growing up because I was just this wild child, had potential to play like in the baseball was the sport I really liked. But like I just threw a lot of stuff away because I was just irresponsible, had no work ethic, and I just, I threw it away. So like there's that part of me now that's still like, if I give up now on something, like I'm just validating the way I was through high school and college. So like I couldn't live with that. That was like that. There's part.
Then you didn't really ever change.
Yeah, it was like now I'm and just to quit or give up, I couldn't do it. I don't think I could live with myself. Or everybody around me would have been like, "Yeah, Roger, we totally get it. Like we understand. Like why." So like people are like, "Oh, are you going to compete this year?" I'm like, "I don't know." I've really not put the pressure on myself to go compete this year. In fact, I really just want to train. I got a coach in Birmingham, so he and I, he gives me my training plan every week, and we stay in touch. And I'm just really happy working on weaknesses. Like, what are some things I need to work on, and not killing myself. It's kind of funny. I think I've kind of figured out what really works for me from a training perspective, and I'm enjoying that part, as well as trying to tweak things. Like a really good powerlifter has no weaknesses, so I've got plenty of them. So I'm working on them. And so I think I'm really enjoying the experimenting, trying new things out from an exercise training perspective, and just, and it's really, and also, you think about, again, alluding to, my parents' health isn't good and having to be more attentive to them and everything going on. That training that I do is the place where I decompress. So like, it's not, I'm not on my company's time. I'm not on family time. Like it's straight up like Roger time. I'm like, it's the cheapest form of therapy I know I can go get, because I train out of my garage. I gotta, gotta set up in my garage. And so I can just go out there and just do my thing and work out and train and, just enjoy it. So I don't know when I'll compete. Alabama State Games are in Birmingham, Hoover this year. That would have been interesting. I think it comes up in June. They're actually having powerlifting as a sport this year, first time ever. So like all my powerlifting friends in the state are like going. So that's kind of hard, because the powerlifting community is really cool. State Alabama is a really good community, and we're really strong. Like we're one of the strongest in the country. So it's just a good family feel, and we got a lot of swagger for what we do. And so there's a part of me that's like, I'm not going to Alabama State game when they offer powerlifting for the first time. I'm like, I'm okay with it. If I compete again, great. If I don't, I'm okay with it. But I really want it to be on my terms. I didn't want it to be like an injury that ended it, or maybe I just went to too dark of a place mentally, emotionally, where I couldn't like pull myself out.
Well, that's part of it too, is having the passion, right? And you can lose passion, and maybe you work through it and get it back. And so then there's other times you just got to walk away for a little bit.
Yeah. So that, we call that motivation. Like motivation comes and goes, discipline, commitment is really where you win it. So like when you're not motivated, you have the discipline, commitment to just follow through. And I would go back to like intrinsically, like here, you have to really have a strong why, and you've got to have that strong intrinsic reason for doing what you do. A lot of great athletes knew that they were kind of done with their career. I just read a book like in the last year, Champions Mindset by Pete Sampras. So if there's any tennis fans, that name. Yeah. I love tennis. Never played it, but I love watching it. And Pete Sampras just got to a place in his career. At the time, he had the most majors, 14. And he walked away from the sport on his own terms, and just that intrinsic drive and that motivation just wasn't there, and he was completely okay with it. Yeah. He's, the one major he hadn't won was the French Open, but he was like, man, my body feels good, my mind's right, but to put in the work to try and go win the French on a surface I don't play well on, just, he's like, I'm okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like everybody kind of had every great athlete, I think, I mean, there's plenty that stayed too long and it was obvious, but there's a couple that walked away like on their own terms when they wanted to.
Yeah. So that kind of covers the personal side. You're probably not going to compete this year, and it's okay.
Yeah.
What's next what do you want to accomplish the rest of this year? Let's just call it for the balance of 2024.
Yeah.
Whether that's what we've talked about in your consultancy, right?
Yeah.
In your 9 to 5, and then Power Mental Performance.
So within just the day-to-day job of the company I work for, just, really blowing out that mental performance side of to help our employees perform under pressure. And so just thinking creatively how we can do that. I think that's where I get my passion, my energy from. And then, for Power Mental Performance, I'll be working with Hoover Volleyball again. Westminster Christian Academy football, Coach LeBlanc over there, talking to him coming up next week. Coach White at Bob Jones reached out again. Hampton Sydney will roll around, so we'll work with them on basketball. Coach Blanding over at the Cybersecurity Engineering School. I do work with a junior college up in Michigan, Grand Rapids Community College, so I work with their basketball team. I got connected with him. You think Michigan, Roger, how'd that happen? His mother-in-law works at Athens State here in Athens.
Okay.
And so she and I are friends, and then mentioned, hey, my son coaches basketball, and connected there. So I've been working with Grand Rapids Community College for 2 years. It'll be 3 years next year. And I'm sure I'm leaving out, some other schools that'll probably reach back out again. So really a goal for me is continuing to expand into college basketball and pick up some more teams. I think that's, one of my goals, and trying to network with some of my existing coaches to make that happen. And then I still do a lot of client one-on-one work. So, Ruby that you saw in the testimonials, I'll be working with her again. I'm working with 2 golfers right now. One's at Ohio University, and another one is trying to break onto the tour, PGA Tour. So I'm working with him. And then just, whomever else comes down the pike, but still doing the one-on-one work.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I mean, really just trying to keep the existing portfolio and then expand it.
Yeah, little by little, right?
Just little by little. God's been good to me. I've been doing it over 7 years, and so very fortunate and blessed. A lot of, I recognize a lot of people that start something like this, they don't finish, or just circumstances happen where they can't do it. So I don't take it for granted, and just very thankful that I can keep doing what I'm doing, and He's allowed it to happen.
And I think it's a fortunate tie for you that it's a lot of similarity to what you do in both your 9 to 5. Yeah. I don't know what to call it. I don't want to you're professional in both, but it's your full-time job.
Regular full-time job. Yeah.
Your regular full-time job, and this other thing have a nice interplay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Things that you can draw on.
Yeah. So in the business world, we're just trying to develop corporate athletes. That's kind of the mantra. And
you're always using examples of sports and teams, right? Yeah. And business training.
Yeah.
Well, Roger, it's been a pleasure having you, brother.
Man, Our Town 2.0. It was good. I enjoyed it. And again, you look good in Power Mental Performance red, man.
Thank you.
Wear that shirt well.
I appreciate it. The red is a powerful color.
Yeah, it's a good color.
And I love it. It looks good up on the screen that I'm looking at. So.
It ties in good with your Trash Panda.
Yeah, I had to wear a hat.
The logo.
I had
it
to
looks
find
good.
Something red. I was going to wear
I like it.
Light blue. I was like, I can't do that. It's got to match.
Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, all the best to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll touch base soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Yep.